So, first question we got from, and the other thing too, if I mispronounce your name, I just apologize up front, right? But Alsuin asked, why are the Republicans attempting to block any attempt to investigate the events of January 6th? Okay, so I'm assuming this is in reference to the House basically wants to hold an investigation on January 6th. And, gosh, why would any Republican be against this? So, and I know you're coming at this from a perspective, because I read some of the other comments and whatnot on what you think of this, and so I'm going to try to give you, the reason why a lot of conservatives are skeptical of this. I don't think there's a whole lot of skepticism for investigating January 6th with respect to things like, why did this happen with regards to the role of the Capitol Police, with respect to Capitol security? I mean, there's legitimate questions there. Ben Shapiro has actually talked about this, and again, regardless of what you think about Ben Shapiro, I actually think he gave a good overview on when is it appropriate for Congress to launch an investigation. So there's some things Congress does investigations for, which to me look like third world show trials, and I think they're ridiculous. And why is Congress even doing this? So what are the areas where Congress should hold investigations? Well, when there's some sort of oversight component, which is to say that Congress is asserting its authority because it believes that a different branch of government is perhaps, gone beyond its constitutional limitations or is doing something that is reserved only for the legislature. Another component is to actually conduct research or investigate something in order to determine what sort of appropriate legislation might be necessary to correct problems. So a good example of this was something like the 9/11 Commission. Now, when you saw the 9/11 Commission go forward, it was really focused on, okay, why did this happen? What were the breaks in the system? How do we improve upon it? And for the most part, whether you agree with all the findings of the commission or not, I think most people had a reasonable amount of faith that this was something where it was bipartisan and people were coming together because we really wanted to identify particular problems, not necessarily engage in like an overt politicized blame game. I don't think you see that same thing with the January 6th investigation that they're launching. And some of that has to do with the way that it's set up, and some of it has to do with kind of the nature of the investigation and what they're researching. So some of this has to do with what sort of rhetoric led to certain behavior. And Republicans are coming back, and we're looking at this going, wait a second, you had riots all over the country to include attacks on federal buildings, on government buildings. There was no call for an investigation, no particular interest in an investigation from House Democrats. But January 6th, now there is an interest, and there's a very, very limited interest on what it is that they want to investigate. And so for someone like me, I am interested in what was the breakdown in security protocols and procedures with respect to the Capitol Police. I'm interested in that. Not because I want to throw rocks at Capitol Police. I just want to know what exactly happened and why this took place the way it did. That's not to say that I don't also want to understand the motivations of various groups involved. But again, for all of us to have faith that this is going to be a good faith investigation, there needs to be genuine bipartisanship, and it can't be narrowed or tailored in such a way to where it looks like that you're trying to arrive at a foregone conclusion. And so that is where I think a lot of Republicans, that's where I have issues with it, is that this feels more like a political witch hunt than it does a genuine analysis of what happened on January 6th. And then again, it begs the question that if we're gonna analyze January 6th based off of this criteria, well then we could look at a lot of other criteria that took place in the country over the last year that might also warrant similar investigations. Are you willing to do that, or is this just something where we're going to play political gotcha games? So I don't think it's that Republicans don't see any value in understanding more about what happened with respect to tactics, techniques, and procedures on the Capitol and things like that. But there's just not a lot of trust that this is going to be anything more than political theater, potentially ahead of the midterms. And how long can this be drug out, right? So that's the best answer I can give you with respect to what my view is on it, and where I think a lot of conservatives view this, is that it seems very selective. And that's not to say that it's not important. There aren't legitimate reasons to investigate it. I think there are. But it's about doing it in a way that really is open, transparent, and about getting to the truth of things, not having foregone conclusions and then automatically, trying to prove those foregone conclusions, right? Let's come up with open, honest guidelines. Let's come up with a panel of people that both sides can trust, and let's sit and have an open and honest debate about it. And, this is the sort of thing where this very quickly becomes pandering to the camera. For either both sides of the aisle, it becomes pandering to the camera. and there are some serious questions that we should be asking about not only January 6th, but a lot of other events that took place last year. But again, we just have to do it in a way that both sides can trust. And unfortunately, there's a lot of motivation to politicize every single aspect of this, and I don't think that's very helpful. And that's why you see Republicans opposing it. I don't think it's just because they don't care what happened or they don't care about certain failures and procedures or whatnot. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Question from Bill. So Bill said,